Today to give you some state updates for the 190 and the 491 visa. So we can see that a lot of you are very anxious and wondering what's going to happen. So we thought we will just go live and answer some of your questions and also give you updates that we have for each of the states until now. So I'm going to wait for a few people to join us for this live session. And if any of you have any questions, please make sure that you put it in the chat box, because once we have gone through the general updates that we have for you, we will be answering your questions as well. So my name is Sumandua. I'm a registered migration agent and my MARN number is 1800859.
Hello everyone, my name is Aman Puri. I'm the registered migration agent. I'm based in Sydney office and my MARA number is 1569291.
Hello everyone, my name is Rizu Shrestha and my MAR number is 1792749 and I'm based in Brisbane office.
Okay, so we have actually just met today in the Sydney office. Everybody is here today because the plan was to go live from the Sydney office. So as we all have seen that the states have been given the quota for this year's 190 and the 491, and everyone is very disappointed with the low number of seats everybody has got, and looks like states were not aware that they were going to get very less quota this year. So obviously, if you look at Western Australia's criteria, they announced that this criteria, like, included pretty much everyone, and they had like a lot of options, a lot of flexibility, and looked very promising as far as the criteria was concerned. But when we look at the seats, I don't think that they can actually really go very long with that criteria if the number of the seats will be this low. We are also hoping that once the department has cleared some visa backlog, they may release some more seats, because if you look at the number of seats that we have got for 190 and 491, they have allocated more seats for 190 and less seats for 491, and usually it's always the other way around. For 190 the states get less seats than the 491. So there is a possibility, if not for 190, maybe they will release more seats for the 491, and we are yet to see the numbers for the 189 visa as well. Now, if you're somebody who is a bit frustrated and you have been working for a little while in your nominated occupation, you have an employer who is ready to sponsor you, it's not a bad idea to look at 186 or 494 visa options as well. But we will probably do a separate session on the employer sponsored visas, because today we just want to focus on the skilled visas. So if we look at the number of seats, just to give you an overall picture, New South Wales and Victoria are still the winners, as long as, when you see the number of seats that have been allocated to them, they have been allocated the most seats. New South Wales have been allocated 2,650 for 190 and 1,500 for 491. And Victoria has been allocated 2,700 for the 190, and they have been allocated less seats for 491, which is only 600. But that was the case last year as well. Victoria was given way more seats for 190 than for 491. So, and then South Australia 1,100 for 190 and 1,200 for 491. So again, like, very less seats compared to last year. And then Queensland again 900 for 190 and 650 for 491. But we will probably talk about each state as well, because some states have also sent newsletters, just giving us an idea how things will look like this year. So probably I'll get Aman to tell us a bit more about New South Wales.
Thank you, Suman. So I'm going to talk about New South Wales, as we have got the allocation for most of the states. We have got allocation for NSW 190 visa up till a number of 2,650 seats, and for 491 visa we have got 1,500 seat for New South Wales. This number is comparatively quite less as compared to the last year's seats, which were allocated to 190 and 491 visa. Last year it was about 9,000 seats in for 190 visa, while for 491 there were around 6,100 seats for 491 visa. When it's little challenging and competitive with New South Wales always, and when with this limited quota it gets really competitive. But we have received little information from New South Wales that we need to be very careful when we are lodging an expression of interest. We know that most of the applicants, they tend to lodge expression of interest on their own, but then it's a very critical step when we do lodge expression of interest, because this is an entry point where we get our profile updated with skills select. So with New South Wales, it's important that we choose skills expression of interest for different subclasses. So whether it's 189, 190, or 491, they want each EOI for each subclass. So if we are putting all the subclass in one EOI, it may disqualify your expression of interest. And also they want the other thing that they want, that your all the skill assessment, passport, and your English are valid at the time of invitation. So once the invitation is made by New South Wales, your expression of your skill assessment, your passport, your English test result, they should be valid for at least 5 business days. So make sure when you are submitting an expression of interest, all the information is current and valid. If any false information is provided in the expression of interest, it may lead in the permanent ban on your profile as well. So we recommend that you make a very careful consideration when lodging an expression of interest for NSW.
Thank you, Aman. So I think you have made a very good point there. So usually some states are quite flexible if you make a mistake, but New South Wales is not that forgiving because of the high competition in this state. So you have to make sure that if you're lodging your EOI, it's like more than perfect. There are no errors, and you're definitely eligible for New South Wales invitation. So like Aman said, like if you actually lose the opportunity, you kind of lose it for long term, and they are not ready to give you the nomination again. So if you do need help with New South Wales expression of interest, you can always contact Aman Puri, because she's based in the Sydney office. We are on level 49, 8 Parramatta Square in Parramatta. Let's look at Queensland as well. So Riju, would you like to give us an update about Queensland?
Thank you, Suman. So Queensland, they haven't released their new criteria this year. We are still waiting for it. So last year, for 491, they had 2,000 seats approved and 3,000 seats for 190. But this year, like all the seats, they have been reduced by 70% on an average, with just 1,550 seats in total, with 900 seats in 190 and 650 in the 491. Looking at the previous requirement, previous pathways that we could apply UIs in Queensland. So there were three pathways. We could apply undergraduate pathway, skilled pathway, or the small business ownership stream. So graduate pathway, the applicants required you to complete 100% of the qualification in Queensland and must have held employment if they were graduates of master's or bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degree and master's degree, if not in STEM, they could only apply for 190. But if they are graduates from STEM qualification, they could also apply for 190. Yeah. So and the PhD graduates, they didn't need any job offer. Um, the other pathway is the skill pathway, and the skill pathway required applicants to be working for at least 35 hours per week, and also required a job offer letter for 12 months of contract. So those were one of the big requirements of Queensland, um, and we could see that most applicants would provide the employment contract, but they could have issues. They could reject the document employment contract based on if not meeting the criteria, like 35 hours per week. Um, there were other requirements that we had to submit, like, for example, residency requirement in Queensland, payslips, bank transaction, and the visa details, because Queensland would only accept applications for visa holders who had full-time working rights. So no student visa holders could apply for Queensland state nomination. Um, The other pathway is the small business owner stream, where they don't require high points. Like for example, for 190, only applicants who had more than 80 points could apply. But for small business owner stream, if an applicant has a 50 points, they are running a business for 6 months in duration. The business is supposed to be more than 100K, and the applicant must be the 100% owner. So if they are meeting those kind of criteria and only has 50 points, they can still apply for 1491. And we had many applicants on the SPS stream, right, Suman?
Yeah.
Yep. So those were the few requirements of Queensland that hopefully the criteria won't change, but then again they could also release new skilled occupation list based on the Queensland requirements. Their what skilled occupation they are looking for, because none of the states had all occupation open, but only the Queensland didn't have the occupation list. But this year we could see some changes.
Okay, thank you, Riju. So very good information there. So like Riju mentioned that Queensland does not invite people on student visas. So if you're somebody who has a skills assessment, you are holding a student visa, maybe you have a job as well in Queensland. So until now, Queensland has not nominated people on student visa because they want you to be working full time. But Riju, do you think that could change this year, like given the limited quota?
Yeah, I don't think that will change.
yeah.
Because the seats are so limited, and I think they may increase the points too, maybe, or even if they don't increase it, they would look after high points. So it's best to increase your points, and see what occupation could be in demand in Queensland.
Just in case they have their own occupation list.
Yeah.
And what do you want to say to applicants? I see like a lot of entrepreneurs and people who have like, they want to run their own businesses. And Queensland usually nominates people who are working in the field. What do you have to say to these people maybe who actually genuinely want to run business? Do you think the small business owner could be a very good pathway for them?
Yes, I think Queensland is one of the best states if you want to open a business, run the business. You need to buy the business in your regional area. That's a given because they can only sponsor for 491. So if you have low points, let's say if you are an accountant and you don't see any hope in any of the states, so it's a good opportunity to buy a business in Queensland. It's 100K that you have to invest in, and also have to employ one Australian employer, Australian resident employer, for at least 20 hours per week. And definitely, even if you don't have profit, they can still nominate you.
Yeah.
After 6 months.
And Riju, I think you were able to secure this 491 for applicants who were holding the 408 COVID visa as well.
Yes.
Because you do need to have full-time, again, full work rights. So that's the criteria for Queensland. You have to have full work rights. Doesn't matter which stream you're applying for. So even if you like, for example, you have a skills assessment, 50 points, competent English, under 45 years of age, and you want to run a business, then you could be running a business in regional Queensland for 6 months, be eligible for 491, and let's say you're on a student visa which is expiring soon, you could take the 408 visa, which is still available. We don't have the end date, and we are hoping that department will give us some notice before they actually take this visa away. So this visa is still available. Probably take this visa and you could still consider the small business owner stream, because I don't think this stream is going away. I think it's still going to be available. Okay, so thank you, Riju, for that. Let's quickly have a look at Western Australia as well. When Western Australia opened, we had like really high hopes, given what they announced. But then when we looked at the seats, then it looks like they are going to prioritize applicants who are in their state. First of all, it's going to be location based. So if you're in Western Australia, and especially if you're in the priority sector, building and construction, healthcare and social assistance, hospitality and tourism, education and training, and if you're a state, very good chances you'll get invited very quickly. And if you are in building and construction, you do not need a job offer, even for a 190. But other priority sectors, you do need an employment contract, 6 months full time. But for building and construction, you do not need it. So let's say if you're in that state, you could try a 190. You could try a 190 interstate as well, but I'm not sure what the chances will be. Very hard to say how many people will be picked up and things like that because we don't have a data yet. So probably in a couple of months we can say that if they are inviting any interstate applicants or not. But given the number of seats, I would say that if you're in their state, you would have a good chances. And if you're trying from interstate, I would say start looking other options as well for Western Australia. So they have the same stream, Schedule 1. You need 1 year work experience, mostly the health occupations. And for 190, you need the 6 months job offer. And then you've got the Schedule 2, where they have got the 4 priority sectors, but then they will invite applicants from other sectors as well. But I'm sure they will have more quota for the priority sectors and less quota for the other occupations, because I think building and construction is their focus for this financial year. So you could actually look up your occupation there and work it out if it's under priority or not. They have a filter on their occupation list, and you can figure that out. Now for their graduate stream as well, like you don't need a job offer for 190. So you could try that if you're the graduate. And again, their graduates have always been their priority. So the graduates will take, I think the graduates will have more priority than people who just moved there, because these people who have studied there for 2 years, they have already shown commitment to Western Australia compared to somebody who would move there now. So looks like it's going to be a little tough unless and until the states are given some more quota for this financial year. And we are hoping that will happen, because we really can't work with this number, where the employers are screaming, there are so many jobs out there and there are no people to fill it. There is a skilled workers shortage. So I think government will do something, but probably once they have cleared some backlog, which is in their hand. Okay, so next, let's have a look at South Australia. So Aman, would you like to give us an update? What's happening with South Australia?
Yes, Suman. So South Australia has also got its allocation, which is comparatively as well reduced in numbers. So this year, South Australia has got 2,300 places as compared to 8,800 places last year. South Australia hasn't released any skill list on their website or any requirements at this stage. They will be announcing their requirements and the skill list in the coming weeks as per their website. But if we look at the last year requirements, there have been different streams for their South Australia graduates, for the highly skilled workers as well. And the quite popular stream was Outer Regional South Australia, where people from, if someone has low points but they can secure a job in Outer Regional, they can look at that option as well. With South Australia, the good point have been in the past is they don't go by the high points. They always go with the minimum required points. And if you are reaching the minimum required points and you meet all the requirements, like you have a positive skill assessment, you are below age of 45 years, competent English, 65 minimum points, you will be able to get the invitation from South Australia. But being less number of seats this financial year at this point of time, it can be little competitive, but again the focus should be on increasing your points, working on different parameters as we have discussed previously as well.
Okay, so Amit, I know like Outer Regional South Australia has been a very good stream, and we had a lot of clients who got nominated under that stream.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the chances of, do you think that stream is going to stay? Because it's like a really good stream for applicants who are not working in that occupation.
Yes, that as we discussed, it looks like that the stream will stay there, because there has been no indication from South Australia so far that they are going to change the streams.
Yeah.
So if this stream is going to stay, then it will definitely help applicants who are actually at the low points. Someone sitting at 50 points, they can also consider this stream, move in South Australia, and meet the requirements. As in the last year, they only need to work 30 hours per week in any job. So it's not even their nominated occupation, it can be any job. So if an applicant is having a low points, they can work in any occupation and still be eligible for the 491 application. So it's a pretty good catch, but we still need to look up if the South Australia is keeping the requirements same, or if
Or
there are
they're
any
increasing the
changes.
criteria.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think they mentioned in one of the webinars they did recently that they are planning to keep the same stream. So, but again, we want to see it on the website before we start talking about that stream and advising clients to maybe take that opportunity. But keep in mind that the work experience requirement is 30 hours, so will not suit somebody who is a student visa holder. So would only suit somebody maybe 408, 485, or a visa with full work rights, because you need to be showing 30 hours a week job in outer regional South Australia. So thank you, Aman, for giving us an update about South Australia. Let's look at Victoria as well. Riju, what's your take on that?
So Victoria, they have been allocated 2,700 seats for 190 and the 600 seat for 491. So this is very less compared to last year, where they received 12,900 for 190 and 2,000 for 491. And also there is a vast difference between um, 1906 and 491C, as you mentioned earlier, Suman. And Victoria is also one of the states where you didn't have to work in the nominated occupation, although they would prefer it. But if you were working in skill level 1 to 3, they would still apply. You can mention that and um, give the details of your salary income, and they would still send out the invitation. Um, so Victoria was very lenient and was sending out invites to most of the occupation. They were actually preferring nurses and yeah, teachers, but they also sent out invitation to other occupations as well. Um, yeah. So, but we had to submit registration of interest for Victoria, and it was very important that you provide your salary details as correct as possible to the in the RI, because if it was incorrect, it would be rejected, and you would receive a 6 months ban for Victoria. The other thing that I would like to discuss about Victoria is I think the requirements could remain the same, but since they have received so much less quota, I think the competition is going to be fierce. Uh, Looking at the number of applications in Victoria, there are many applications over there, applicants sitting in Victoria over there, and yeah, if they are not working in the nominated occupation, it's high time that you look forward to get employed in a nominated occupation, because even if it was not a requirement previously, they could again reintroduce this criteria. What do you say? Yeah.
Okay. That's a very good tip there, Riju, that, if you want nomination from Victoria this financial year, I think working in your nominated occupation would be like would really increase your chances. Even last year, if you look at it, the number of seats allocated for 491 were like way less than
Yes.
190. I think this is because, Victoria was one of the state which was recovering from COVID, and, most of the jobs were in the city area, and department was trying to help them. This year as well, they have only been given 600 seats for 491 and 2,700 for 190. So of course, the chances of getting invitation for 190 are a bit higher. But then, like you're just saying, that it's going to be competitive, high points, working in your nominated occupation, high salary package will also be the key, because they have built this ROI system. It's not, they haven't built it just for 1 year.
Yeah.
So I think again they are going to ask you your package. They are going to ask you if you're working in your nominated occupation, if you have a skilled partner or not, and all these things will determine if they will send you the invitation. Because with Victoria, it's like case to case basis. It's not like, oh, okay, if you have high points, you'll get it. Like with New South Wales, they pick with the points. Whereas with Victoria, it's like they look at your full resume and then they send you the invitation. So Victoria is usually, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. But, if you know that Victoria is the state you want to stay in, then you have to, make sure that you're working in your field. And also, like I mentioned before, if you're already eligible for a 186 or a 491, consider those options as well, because the visa processing time has really gone faster for those visas as well. So that's also something you could consider if you know that Victoria is the state you want to live in and you don't want to move, and in case Victoria is not inviting applicants with your, with your profile. So that's something you can consider. Let's quickly have a look at Tasmania as well. So we do have various videos about Tasmania. Now, Tasmania has got a lot of streams, a lot of criterias and things like that. But the basic thing that you want to look at is that if you're working in your field, then they have actually opened all occupations. If you're working in your field from last 15 months, they have opened all occupations for 190. So in the past, they had their own Tasmania skilled occupation list, and you had to have like your occupation open for the 190 under the skilled pathway, but that's not the case anymore. So if you're a long term, if you're in a long term employment situation, you can try for a 190 there. Then they have their usual skilled graduate pathway if you've studied there 2 years. And then they also have introduced the established resident pathway last year, and they have continued this pathway this year as well. So if you are living in Tasmania from 3 years, and then again, there is a further criteria that, 50% of the time in Australia needs to be in Tasmania, things like that, and, working in a skill level 1 to 3 position. And then they have the overseas applicant health sector job offer pathway, which is only for the 190 visa in Tasmania. So they do have 4 streams for their 190 visa, and for their 491 visa, I think they have got about 6 streams for the 491. And again, with the skilled employment pathway, 6 months work experience, but for both 190 491, they will consider 20 hours a week work experience to be eligible. And then if you want to try after 3 months, then you could go for a 491 if your occupation is on the TOSOL. And then they have the skilled graduate pathway with 1 year studies in Tasmania. But then, you have to keep in mind that with Tasmania, and actually Tasmania is the only state where if you meet their minimum eligibility criteria, it doesn't mean that you will get nominated, because then you have to meet their further attributes, and depending on how many attributes you're meeting and what card you get, like gold, yellow, or orange, which one you fall under, based on that you will have to wait there. So if you are working in the critical sector, then we have seen invitations being given in like 2 days, 3 days. In green category, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and in orange category, it could take 6 months for that one. Now, Tasmania also has business operator pathway. So if you're running a business in Tasmania for 12 months, you could consider that pathway as well. But you do have to prove that you're, making 80% of the TISMIT, I think, which is about 59,500. They also have the overseas applicant job offer pathway and the overseas applicant OSOP, which is the overseas skilled occupation list. They have just for the overseas applicants, which is the invitation only pathway. And we have seen a lot of invites going out to the overseas applicants. So don't think that it's very difficult to get invitation. Even if you're an overseas applicant, and if your occupation is on that list, I would highly recommend that you try the Tasmania invited only pathway as well for the 491. So that's for Tasmania. Northern Territory, there is no update. And Northern Territory, let's have a look at their seats. It's a very disappointing number, 250 seats for the 190 and 400 seats for the 491. But if I look at, the number of students studying in Northern Territory who will be eligible are way more than 250. So I'm not sure what they are going to do, because already the number was so less and their processing time is so slow, because they always have to wait for the new quota to invite the applicants who are in the pipeline. So I'm not sure what Northern Territory will do, because I don't think they can even accommodate their own graduates this financial year. So these are the few reasons we think that states should be given more seats. They deserve more seats because of the promises they have made. Students have come to these states to study, and they have the graduate pathway, and there are employers screaming that we need workers and things like that. So we are really hoping that the states will get some more quota. So these were the updates from the states. We are happy to take some questions as well. Okay, so we will probably not answer questions about processing time, But Aman, do you want to just give like a general processing time overview for each visa subclass? So this one is for 189.
Yes, sure, Suman. So for the 189 visa, we are looking at a processing time for 5 months up till 8 months. This is an indication as per the department's website, but of course it can go up and down as well. Few applications have been granted before 8 months, but few of them still waiting more than 8 months. With 190 a visa application, the processing time is sitting somewhere between 2 months up till 7 months. So with the 491 visa application, the processing time is somewhere about 6 months till 18 months, and we know that some of the applicants are also waiting beyond that time. So that is the time frame which is published on the department's website, which is quite an indication how long the visa processing can take.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll take this one. I have a quick question. I have applied for EOI this month. How long will it take? So Priyam, it's actually a lot of things. So just lodging the EOI may not do anything. You need to be lodging the EOI for the correct subclass and in the correct state, because if you're somebody who is lodging an EOI for any state, may not even get picked up. And if you're somebody, let's say you have ticked 189, 190, 491, again, very less chances, especially if you look at New South Wales, they are very strict with how you're going to lodge their EOI. They don't want you to take anything else apart from their state and apart from the one subclass that you want to try for. So I would probably say take professional help in this, because if you're lodging EOI just randomly for every state or whatever, then probably that's not the right thing to do. Okay, Riju, would you like to take this one? Will they increase seats later for 190, 491? Will it be worthwhile doing 189 instead?
So applying for 189 EOI, if you are eligible, if your occupation is MLT SSL list, then you can definitely apply for 189 EOI. But as Suman suggested, that you need to apply EOIs in different EOIs for different categories. We do not recommend to apply EOIs with categories selected for 189, 190, and 491 in the same EOI. So yeah, if you would like to apply for 189, you can definitely do so.
Yeah, so just make sure that your occupation is on the MLTSSL. And with increasing the seats, we are really hoping, but nobody actually would have the definite answer, because we all are just guessing and predicting that it should happen, given the numbers that were given, which are like very disappointing. All right, so we are not taking the processing time questions. All right, so Western Australia. Hospitality industry, yeah, it's still prioritized for the 491. 70, yeah. So yes, so I think I have covered this. Like even they have got less quota, but their priority sectors are here to stay. So they will prioritize applicants in the hospitality industry, but then the priority sector and then the location. So if there are applicants in their state, let's say they want to give 50 seats to the hospitality sector. They have a quota for 50 seats for hospitality sector, and they look at their EOI data. By the way, they have 5,000 EOIs in the system right now, and it's just the start of the financial year. They look at their EOI data and they see, okay, we have actually got 50 people in our own state sitting at 80 points. Let's invite them. So they will actually never get to interstate or overseas applicants. So reducing the quota doesn't mean that they will remove the priority sectors. It's just that the quota is less, so less chances for applicants overseas or interstate, or with less points. Okay, no, not replying processing time questions. All right, this is an interesting question here. All right, Aman, do you want to take this one?
So it says my wife's skill assessment is done positive, and PD also 7 each is positive scale. So the both primary and secondary applicant skill assessment is positive. Okay, so with this one, if you are applying an EOI, any of the applicant help from the partner, like husband and wife, can be an primary applicant, provided they have current skill assessment and they do meet minimum point requirement of 65 points, and their occupation is on the list. So depending what your occupation is it available on the list? And if you have 65 points of minimum, then yes, you can apply. Any of your either your partner or you can apply as a primary applicant.
Yeah, so the person who doesn't have the English test cannot be the primary applicant, but then, to get the 10 points for the skills assessment and English, you can't even get like 5. So for example, if you just have the skills assessment, no English, then you can't get the 5 points. You have to have both for 10 points. But if you just have the English test, then you can get 5 points. So I know a lot of people are maybe lodging EOIs with expired skills assessment and expired English test, but we don't do it. We don't recommend doing that. So I would wait until you get the English test. Okay. Let's take this one. Riju, would you like to take this one?
What are the chances for motor mechanic with 70 points for 189, 75 points for 190, and 85 points for 191? Currently in Victoria, is there any chance to get invited this financial year? Look, Melinda, motor mechanic is a very not in the priority sector of the Victoria state, and 70 points for 189. So it's not very high points too. We could hope for the invite, but then again, since the quotas have significantly reduced, so yeah, it would be very competitive.
Yeah. So I would say probably look at other options or try to increase your points as well. But then, keep in mind, Maninder, we all are just guessing right now based on last year, based on the numbers. Victoria is still to release their occupation list and their criteria. So sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. And also sometimes, start of the year is always tough, especially with Victoria and New South Wales. They always start it very tough, and then later in the year they reduce the criteria and things like that. But you just got to try. You just have to do what you have to do, to increase your chances. Okay, welder, I think all states are good for welders, but I don't know which state you're in. I think even if you're offshore, it doesn't matter what state you're in, I'm pretty sure your state would have your occupation open. And if not, it will be very easy for you to get nomination from another state. Okay. Riju, would you like to take this one?
Any idea when Queensland will open for 180? Yep, we don't have any update as of yet, but once we do, we will update in our Facebook pages, our social media pages, and I would recommend you to tune to our Facebook pages.
Okay, let's have a look at this one.
Okay, so it's my friend have received an NSW invitation recently. However, should she wait for 189, as it seems people who got 189 invitation last year still has not got their visa, then people receiving 190 NSW. So if you have already received the invitation, sure, you should proceed with the invitation rather than waiting for the 189 itself, because we don't know when the 189s are coming up. So they may happen sooner, or there may be a bit of wait for 189 as well.
Yeah, so migration rule is just take whatever is on offer, because that may also go away. Okay, that is correct, Emily. So most of the states, they have not released their occupation list or criteria. So the information that we have right now on hand is from Western Australia, ACT, Tasmania. No other states have announced anything as yet. Chef Victoria chances. We were actually looking at the number of EOIs that are lodged for the occupation of chef. Very competitive occupation. But then it does fall under the critical sector as well, as per the department's definition. So you never know. But usually I've not seen any state not having chef occupation open in their state. But because there are a lot of people applying in your own state, it is going to be competitive. So it's always a good idea to work in your occupation and increase your points. Okay, so that's processing time as well. I'm not sure if you're onshore or offshore. Do you want to take this one, Biju?
Hi, my EUI points are 84190 and EUI submitted on first week of August for New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland. Will submit RI for respective states. Any chances for ICT project manager? Hi Vinod. So you are on 80 points. 190. Okay. So not too sure how you have submitted your EUI. If you have submitted it separately or in the same EUI. If in the same EUI, as we have already told you, you need to lodge it separately. Yeah. So regarding the points, yeah, we need to wait for the states to open, and see how where you stand at. But if you don't have superior English at the moment, maybe you could try working on your English skill and try to increase your points.
Okay, next one is a very long question. Okay, let's take this one from Naril.
So do Okay, so what would be ideal score point wise for Queensland? So that will depend on the occupation and yeah, where you are, whether you're in Queensland or in offshore or in other states. Queensland doesn't accept applications from other states. So yeah, it will depend on the occupation. We can't exactly say what would be the ideal score.
Yeah. So for example, last year they gave us like a minimum mark, 80 points for a 190. But then last year, Queensland had more seats, so everybody with 80 points they got invited because they were eligible. But this year, even if they say 80 points is like the minimum mark, but then if let's say they have 30 seats for your occupation and there are people sitting at 90 points, then the chances of you getting the invite will be a bit low. So we'll have to see because I don't know what your occupation is, but it depends on your occupation as well. All right. Uh, we'll probably take a couple more questions. Okay, Aman, do you want to take this one?
If someone worked as Uber driver is eligible for 408 visa or not. Well, we have done 408 visa for Uber drivers as well. So if you can show the payment, you can provide the proof of payment, then we can look for the 408 visa as well.
Yeah, so definitely possible. So you can get in touch with our office, or you could get in touch with Aman. We can help you with that. Okay, maybe one more, something that we have not covered yet. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Aman, do you want to take this one because I think you've covered it already.
Okay. Having 75 points on excluding state, working and living in outer regional area of South Australia as motor mechanic, gave me 491 invitation but missed that as chasing 189 and 190. According to current allocation, my chances with own 75 points. Look, Reed, as we discussed, South Australia is don't go by higher points; they go by minimum points. If you have 65 points, but you already have 75 points, so there is a good chance that you will get again the 491 option. But as we said, if you're working in your occupation or not, no, so you're working in the South Australia, you will have a good chance. But we still have to wait how we are getting the requirements for South Australia.
Yeah, so I guess just have to wait, and if it's been a while and you have been working, because you're saying you're working as a motor mechanic, see if you could be eligible for a 190 this time around with the new criteria, because points is never an issue. It's always about the work experience requirement. So that's something you could look at. You may want to get in touch with Aman and we can help you with this. So I think we will wind up this session now. So thank you everybody who has joined us today, and we do want to wish all of you all the best. because I know it's just a bit unpredictable times. We did not expect it. We all have been very positive, but that's how Australian migration is. It's never consistent. It just keeps changing. But like I always say, that you just have to do what you have to do, and just make sure that you're taking the right steps, and you have a good strategy in place to get that invitation this financial year. So if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me, Aman, or Riju. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.